All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Creation Liberty Podcast, show number 30. Are we on 37 or 38? I think it's 37. It could be 38. I don't remember. But it's May 14th. I know that. 2012. My name's Chris Johnson, the founder of Creation Liberty Evangelism, where our purpose is to win the lost to Christ and teach the truth of God's Word and science. And we believe God's Word is true and accurate when it deals with history and science. We believe in the literal account of Genesis, that the world was created roughly 6,000 years ago in 6 literal 24-hour days. We not only believe that evolution is a dumb theory, but also a dangerous and destructive religion. And if you're watching a recording from YouTube, you can always join us in live chat Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at creationliberty.com. Just click on the link that says podcast, and that'll get you right over to us. Well, I'm getting some indication on my bandwidth that I may be having some internet problems, so I really hope everything goes smoothly. I'm not really sure everything's going to go as well as I want it to, so we'll see what happens. Now, first off, what you saw the image on there, we're doing a special episode today. It's basically what I'm calling a turkey shoot. Anybody who's ever been to a more modern-day turkey shoot, it's where they put up a bunch of targets in front of you. If you hit the different targets, you win a turkey or something like that. But it's basically they set them up and you shoot them down. That's the way it works. So that's what we're going to do today concerning some questions and comments we've had from some Christians, some atheists, some evolutionists, and so we'll take a look at some of this. Now, I got tons of notes sitting up here, and I've got so many windows open, I might get a little flustered. I apologize if I do that. And you know what, real quick, I'm just going to share this because I was thinking about this before I got to the show. I did something so stupid one time. I had a girl friend of mine who I haven't seen in a long time actually, but she took me out horseback riding with her one time, and for some reason, because we were playing before the show some Western music, you know. Just to give, for the turkey shoot thing, I was playing some Western style music. And I got to remember riding on a horse when she was teaching me to horseback ride. I had been on a few times, but, basically I got on and I felt so stupid what I do. This is years ago. Basically, I got on the horse and she started to go and I went to go and I basically did this with the reins. Now, of course, every action movie sequence that you see with somebody on a horse and they get to go and they whip the reins and they're like, yeah, and that's kind of what I did. And she goes, that horse is not going to respond at all to what you're doing. And I felt so stupid. I mean, basically what you're supposed to do is stick your, you put your feet in the stirrups and basically you shift your body weight forward and the horse will move. And if you shift your body weight back, he will stop. So, I mean, but a lot of people don't realize that they spend so much time watching so many movies instead of, really figuring out what they're supposed to be doing. It's kind of humorous. But anyway, my microphone has been working on and off recently, and now it seems to be working really well today for some reason. I don't know why. So let's get to the point. I don't know why I wanted to share that, but I did. So, okay, so Jay from the United Kingdoms, he's been on one of our episodes before. He came on as a guest. He was writing me about something called a no true Scotsman fallacy. Now this one I felt like I should talk about because just like him, I had heard of this many times. A lot of times the evolutionists and atheists will come on and claim that you're using a no true Scotsman fallacy. And he wrote me and he said, quote, "I was wondering if you'd be willing to give it a read and tell me what you think of it." Well, Jay, no problem. I'll be happy to do that. And I sent him an email concerning some of it today, but I thought I would cover a little bit more specifically on here because it's I am actually convinced at this point that atheists and evolutionists do not even know what a true Scotsman fallacy is or how to apply it properly, and that's why we're here to help. I want to help you guys out. Now, I did take some quotations from Wikipedia on this one. Now, typically, you guys, those of you who follow me a lot, know that I do not like quoting from Wikipedia. I think Wikipedia has a whole lot of bias in a lot of different areas on numerous different topics, and there's a whole lot of incorrect information that's on there, so I don't recommend that anyone quote from Wikipedia. But they did, for the no true Scotsman fallacy, have some really good points and some really good examples. So I want to share from from their website what they put down. No true Scotsman properly used will go like this. For example, Alice will say, "All Scotsmen enjoy haggis." Now, by the way, haggis it's like a pudding or a soup that's made from there's like oatmeal and sheep organs in it, and I don't know why anybody would like it, but some people enjoy that. But anyway, Alice says, "All Scotsmen enjoy haggis." Then Bob says, "Well, my uncle is a Scotsman, and he doesn't like haggis." And Alice responds, "Well, all true Scotsmen like haggis." Now that is a logical fallacy, what she just did, okay? Because the difference that you need to understand, what's really making it a logical fallacy is that Alice is trying to define a Scotsman. Like, part of the definition of a Scotsman, you have to like haggis in order to be a Scotsman. That's what she's attempting to do, okay? Now, the thing is, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn this, it seems like the microphone's going wild on this. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I hope that doesn't affect you guys too much. You might have to turn up your volume a little bit, but anyhow. So this is, again, that's the proper use of the fallacy, okay? However, evolutionists are mixing this up and they're using it incorrectly. And even from the Wikipedia website, which, like I said, I despise quoting from there, but they had a really good point on here. They're actually warning people not to misuse this fallacy. And they said, quote, "The appearance of this fallacy should not be confused with actually failing to meet criteria." Okay, now just what they were trying to say, that's end quote from that. What they're trying to say here is that what Alice was doing was trying to add to the definition of a Scotsman by saying you have to like haggis to be a Scotsman. That's a logical fallacy, okay? But if somebody, let's take this for example. They gave an example of incorrectly using the logical fallacy. Jake, for example, will say, all vegetarians refuse to eat steak. Then Deb says, well, my uncle's a vegetarian and he eats steak all the time. Well, Jake says, well, then he's not really a vegetarian. If Deb came back and said, you're using a no true Scotsman fallacy, she would be incorrect, okay? Basically, the definition of a vegetarian is that you don't eat meat. So you can't say, well, my uncle's a vegetarian and he doesn't eat meat. That's incorrect. You're using that in the wrong way. And so, like, take for another example. If I were to say, me, Chris, when I say Chris, I'm going to say it's me. Chris says, atheists do not believe in God. Then Joe comes along and says, well, my brother's an atheist and he believes in God. And Chris says, well, then he's not really an atheist. And Joe says, aha, no true Scotsman fallacy. Incorrect. The definition of atheism is that you don't believe in a God, right? Okay, so atheists, you need to listen up here very closely. Do you believe everything you're told? Well, of course not, right? I know a lot of atheists that get upset when I ask them that question, but the problem is that many atheists do just take whatever they're told and run with it. They do that with the definitions of a Christian as well. So let me give you another example of incorrect usage that I hear commonly. I'll use the example of Chris, that's me again, and Dave, just as an example. Chris says, Christians do not murder Jews. Dave says, well, Hitler was a Christian and he murdered Jews. Chris says, well, then he's not really a Christian. And Dave goes, aha, no true Scotsman fallacy. Incorrect usage, okay? Now, just analyzing a Christian term alone, what you're doing is that you're basically, anybody that tells an atheist they're a Christian, the atheist just believes them and runs away with it. And I tell them constantly, I said, if I told you that I was an atheist, would you believe me just because I told you that? Well, of course not. You have to look at what the person's saying. They can obviously see, I believe in God, I believe in Christ, I believe in the biblical Christ and the biblical God, not a false God that most people like to make up. But so they can obviously see I'm not an atheist by inspecting and making a judgment based on what I say and what I do. Okay? Just as the same as a Christian has to be defined by what people say, what they do. Like, take for example, in order to be a Christian, first of all, you have to repent. You have to have a repentant heart. You have to say, Lord, I know I am a sinner. I know I have broken your laws. And you have to actually have a sorrow about you for that you have actually hurt the Lord and you've done offense against him. You've angered him. You've upset him. And you're truly sorry for that. And you have to understand what the sins are in the Bible in order to recognize that. Now, just on that basis alone, without even going into actually confessing sins, accepting Jesus Christ, being able to follow the great commandments of loving the Lord and loving your neighbor as yourself, without even going into all of that, just on the repentance issue, we can obviously see that Hitler was not a Christian because he was not repentant of any of those things that he was doing, which the Lord is abhorrent to. So we can see that obviously he can't be a Christian. I mean, just take the great commandment. When Jesus Christ, you said you're supposed to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And then he said the second part of it, like unto the first, which what he just said, is love your neighbor as yourself. Well, Hitler, during the end of the war, when he was losing and he was going to be caught, he was running and hiding. Obviously, he didn't want to die, so why was he killing Jews? I mean, they didn't want to die. He wasn't treating them like himself. I mean, there's obvious things that you can point out that Hitler could not have been a Christian. And you can't call that a no true Scotsman fallacy. I mean, that's just basically the basic definition of a Christian. The problem here is that the average atheist and evolutionist does not want to dig into the Bible to find out what the definition of a Christian is, because they don't want to waste their time with that. Basically, they want to say, well, you see, this is this Muslim or Islamic person over here. Basically, they killed an American or killed an Israeli or something like that. Therefore, all religion is bad. That is also a logical fallacy. You can't just call everything bad because one person does something stupid, okay? And just because, a lot of people will say, Catholicism is Christianity. They try to blend that in with it as well. They'll try to say, well, you see, Christianity has started so many wars. No, sir. Christianity has not started one war. Ever since the beginning with Jesus Christ, Christians have not started one single solitary war. The Catholic Church, which is not part of Christianity, started a lot of wars, and that's a completely different issue, okay? So basically, the no true Scotsman fallacy, it's basically, if it's based on the definition, like you're saying, Christianity is not defined like that, that's not a no true Scotsman fallacy, it's just simply not defined that way. It's like what Wikipedia said, the appearance of this fallacy should not be confused with actually failing to meet criteria. And so, atheist, I would encourage you, quit falsely using the no true Scotsman fallacy. Go research it, find out what it really means, and use it properly. That's all I'm saying to do, is just correct the mistakes there. So, Jay, I hope that helps explain that a little better, that they're falsely using that fallacy. If you're accused of that, I wouldn't take that at face value, because generally they probably don't know what they're talking about. So that one we've got down. We're going to go into another one. There's a YouTube username, Kevin Recon Alpha. These are some of the ones I pulled off of YouTube today as well. Some from email, some from YouTube. This is his account name. Because most of them, I'll just call him Kevin for now. Most of these guys are just kind of anonymous. They won't actually give their name. Very rarely do I find anyone that will give their name on YouTube like that. But here's what he said. This is his quote. Quote, starting here. He said, "You seem to think that science is based around what is provable, when it is actually based around what is falsifiable. Evolution is falsifiable, supernatural creation is not," end quote. Okay, well, let's take a look at this for a moment. Now, first of all, I do have to agree with him on one point. Supernatural creation is not falsifiable because it's not scientific to begin with, okay? Science cannot prove that God created the world, okay? And so if I said God created the world, created the universe, that is not provable scientifically. That goes outside the realm of science. Okay, I am in full agreement with him on that one. So Kevin, therefore, is correctly labeling the creation model, like the beginnings of the creation model, not necessarily the later parts, but that God created the world as supernatural. That is correct, okay? But now what we have to do is go into what the evolutionists have a denial on here. Their theory is also supernatural, and they refuse to admit it. This is the big problem. Now, I'm going to refer you guys to an article I wrote called Evolution, a New Age Religion, and I'm going to cover just a little bit of this here. Let me open this up a bit. And this is something that, sorry, I have, like I said, I have a lot of windows open. That should actually do it. Yeah, we got that open. This is a part at the very beginning of it called Science versus Religion, okay? Now, science, by definition, are things, it's systematic knowledge of the physical world gained through observation and experimentation. So everything that we see in nature is, basically we can test scientifically, okay? Science deals with what we can see in nature, the natural processes, right? Now, of course, God creating the world is not scientific because it operates, God creating the world would operate outside of science. It operates on a different set of rules. We can't use science to analyze something that's beyond the realm of science. Science is very limited on what it can analyze. Now, nature is the material world surrounding mankind. Okay, that's what we just defined. All these definitions are referenced on my website. You can go check that out at the article. Now, the natural world, that is nature, is observable, testable, and demonstrable. Nature, therefore, can be tested by the scientific method. To go beyond what we can observe, test, and demonstrate is called supernature or supernatural, which is to go above or beyond what is natural, unexplainable by natural law, or to go beyond natural forces. So when God creates man and animals from the dust of the ground, that is supernatural because it is unexplainable by natural law. This does not mean that it is not true. Keep that thought in mind, okay? That doesn't mean that God did not create the world. It just means it's not testable by scientific means. It just simply means we can't observe, test, nor demonstrate a creature being created from the dust of the ground. Something supernatural goes into the realm of religion. Now, a religion, by definition, and you can go look this up, the references are on the screen, and it's on the website as well, you can go look this up. A religion is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, a belief in a supernatural power. Now, in the few thousand years of mankind's recorded history, horses have produced horses. That is observable, testable, and demonstrable. That is science, okay? There's a wide variety of horses today. Horses, zebras, donkeys, hebras, zedonks, mules, etc. All of these are interfertile and produce after their kind. Now, that's in all observations, tests, and demonstrations in horse breeding. Horses have remained horses, okay? Even in this picture that you're looking at right here, this is a horse and a zebra that mated and produced a mix. It has some stripes, but it's still the horse kind, obviously. Now, to say that horses produce horses is scientific. To say, now I want you to analyze this closely, to say that horses evolved slowly over millions of years from a common ancestor, which was something non-horse, that is not scientific. And we cannot observe, test, nor demonstrate horses coming from anything but a horse. So since we can't observe, test, or demonstrate horses coming from something that is non-horse, that idea is classified outside the realm of science as supernatural. It therefore goes into the category of religion. Now, evolution, as it is taught in the textbooks of America and many other nations around the world, is a religious worldview by definition. There's no way around this one. The problem is we have an awful lot of evolutionists that are denying that they have a religion. Look, face it, admit it, it's a religion. If you want to believe that, great, go believe that. But don't make me and everybody else pay for that religion to be taught at public expense in the public school system. I don't think we should all be paying for that to be taught. If you want to personally believe it, great. You go start a private school and teach evolution to whoever wants to pay and come learn it, but I don't want to have to pay for that, okay? And if you want to teach evolution, that's perfectly fine. You can teach evolution if you want, but don't teach lies to try to back up and say we have evidence for our theory when you don't really have any evidence for your theory, okay? And like I said, most evolutionists don't even want to come on our show and discuss the evidence for evolution. And that becomes a really big burden on them because, they want to try to sit in this higher chair and say, well, with their noses in the air, basically, they're like, well, we don't need to debate with creationists because evolution is a settled fact of science. This cracks me up. If it was a settled fact of science, then everybody would believe it. But obviously, everybody doesn't because there are opposing views. So the only way to determine which view is correct is to debate it. I mean, even Patrick Henry said that. I mean, there's a quote I could get for you. I don't have it prepared today, where he said, basically, debate is how we determine truth. And that this country ought to be open to debating amongst one another. And I agree with him, and we ought to be open to do that. Unfortunately, that's really being closed down in the evolutionary sector because most evolutionists do not want the topic debated because it makes their theory look really stupid. I mean, when I ask somebody, do you believe a horse and a banana have a common ancestor millions of years ago? Oftentimes they're reluctant to say yes, but they actually do believe that. And that's something that's really, it makes it sound really dumb. And I agree, sounds really stupid. So anyway, moving on, we're going to go to Dave from Ireland. Now, Dave, quote, he says, quote, you are trying to question evidence for evolution that has been correlated across many different disciplines that are all mutually supportive and do not rely on imaginative interpretation. So, end quote. Now, did I get him wrong to say that he's saying that evolution does not rely on imagination? Am I getting that right? You guys tell me in chat if I'm getting that right, okay? Because that's what I thought I heard him say. Now, I'm going to show you, Dave from Ireland, that evolution, the foundation of evolution, takes place in the imagination. Okay, it's supernatural religious imagination, and I'm going to show you live examples of this. First one, we're going to go to a debate that happened. It was a live debate. This is an evolutionary biology professor. He's been a professor for, I think it was something like 30 years. I think it was like 28 years at the time this was done. So he's been a professor for probably about 40 years now. And here's the question that was asked to him. Let's take a listen to this part here. Here we go.
Simply, how does evolution explain symbiotic relationships? And by that, I take it that they're talking about relationships such as the honeybee and flowers that are utilized by the honeybee, totally different separate species.
I'll give an example. Again, I'm not an ecologist, so I don't know specific examples, but there's one example of an insect and a cactus, I think it is, that that are totally dependent on one another. The cactus needs the insect for pollination, the insect needs the cactus for food. And the argument of the creationists is, well, how could they have evolved? Because if you took either one away, they wouldn't they wouldn't be able to survive. But all you have to think about is that in the past, some point in the past, there may have been several insects that fed on that cactus. And so
Now, stop right there before we even continue. Look what he's done. He went straight into his imagination. He said, all you have to think about... Now, first of all, that's already demonstrating this isn't, he's basically saying this isn't something I can show you. He says all you have to do is just think about how there may have been some insects somewhere in the past. And you'll see, if you go on and watch this, I mean, this one's available online. He debates against Dr. Kent Hovind. It's entitled, Is Evolution a Reasonable Scientific Theory? Now, he goes on to talk about, and you'll see where he says, well, it could have been or it might have been. Okay, well, I don't care what you believe, but that's not part of science. Okay? Science is, how did they actually get to have the symbiotic relationship? All he's doing is telling us what he imagines in his mind. He cannot demonstrate that. Okay? Let me give you some other examples here. I got to bring this up, and let me get it on the screen here for you guys. This is something I covered in another podcast episode, but basically this is talking about many organisms, and let me see if I can zoom out a little bit or zoom in a little bit. I guess it's not letting me zoom in on that very well. I'm trying to get in the screen. I hope you guys can read some of this. But basically, this says, for example, the whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges. Of course, this is a lie. This is not true. The whales they use those bones in mating, in reproduction. But these textbooks over and over keep teaching this lie. They keep saying whales have a vestigial pelvis and leg bone that serve no purpose, which is a lie that needs to be taken out of the textbook. It says modern whales have hind limbs which have been reduced to only a few internal hind limb bones that have no function. That is a lie. Okay? Now, this textbook says, just imagine whales walking around. It's true. So they're expecting us to rely on our imaginations, okay? Of course, these are the bones they're talking about right there. So just go ahead and imagine the whale walking around. I'll show you here. Let me get this on screen. There they are, right there. You can see it. Just imagine the whales walking around. I have tried, and I can't, okay? The point being is that, yes, they're asking us to use our imagination as evidence for evolution. It's not really that they have evidence, it's that they want us to imagine, that evolution is true. Imagine that evolution takes place. So let me see if I can get this back over. There's another example I'll give you. Let me see here. I'm looking for the right slide. And this is one, you probably won't be able to see all this. I have it blown up too much. I guess I could, let me see if I can adjust this for you guys. I'm sorry about this. I should have had this a little better for you. But, well, no, I can't quite get this right. Well, sorry, folks. We'll just have to have it blown up a little bit. Sorry about that. We'll switch this over. There we go. And this is Charles Darwin, who is saying... Well, I'm trying to get this centered for you guys, but he basically says, to suppose that the eye could have formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. He wrote this in The Origin of Species, okay? I'm just going to put this back up, but basically, your retina contains about 137 million light-sensitive cells in it. It's unbelievable that they call this, or they try to say that this is... that this, evolved by random chance is unbelievable. I mean, you really have to be brainwashed to believe such a thing. And there's a whole bunch of things I go on to explain about it, but this is what I want to get to right here. And I hope you guys can see this. I'll try to adjust if you can't. Basically, I have to look at this. There we go. It says, basically, you can better understand how the eye might have evolved if you picture a series of changes during the evolution of the eye. Each step along the way provided organisms with slightly better vision. So you have to picture it in your mind. That's what they're teaching the kids. They're teaching them how to imagine that evolution happened, because of course we don't have any evidence for it. We can't really show it to you, but if you can just imagine it evolve, then you'll see. And it says you can better understand it by imagination. I mean, and he tries to say that it's not based on imagination. Look, Dave, or who was it that said this? I can't remember the. Let me pull my notes back up here. Yeah, Dave from Ireland. Look, if you have been taught that evolution is not founded in imagination, I'm sorry you got taught that, okay? But in fact it is, and that's the way it's being taught in the public school system today. It's being taught as purely imaginative processes that you have to make it up in your head. It takes extraordinary mental gymnastics and twisted mental contortions in order to get to accept this, because it doesn't make any sense and we have no evidence for it whatsoever. So it's amazing that some of these people they come by YouTube and they start making these random comments. But I've been wondering if they're, especially with this next guy I'm about to read, I'm wondering if they stop to think about what they're saying. Most of them just want to say, I believe this and that's the final issue. They don't even, and they get so emotional about it. It's like you don't even stop and read what you wrote and think about what you're saying. Here's this next guy. I'm going to read the whole thing and then I'll go back and review it, okay? This is a YouTube username, Pandora Child. He had no information on his channel whatsoever, which is what they typically do. They're anonymous cowards that make, basically, most of the time, ad hominem comments and then don't let anybody know who they are because they're scared to death after that. But basically, here's what he says. Quote, ha 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 ha, 6-day creation. That was the first line, okay? Continuing, he said, how did the Bible count days when the sun was created on the 4th? Oh yeah, why does it say the sun revolves around the earth, yet you believe in this? Are you getting some sort of kickbacks from teaching these lies? Well, here we go. First of all, and I guess we're going to go through this one step at a time here. First of all, he says, are you getting some sort of kickbacks from teaching these lies? Sir, if you think I make money from this, you have got to be kidding me. Would I like to make money and do this full-time for a living? Absolutely. And if anybody wants to start supporting that, let me know, because I'd be glad to do it. I'd start writing stuff and producing so many materials and start handing stuff out to people, but I don't have anyone supporting what I'm doing. Typically because when you teach the truth of the Bible, it's not popular anywhere. And we do not make money from this. I'm trying to scrounge up. We have some evangelistic projects we were just talking about live in the chat before the show that I still, my mother, my wife, my wife and I was trying to think of what's Lorraine called again? A wife, correct. My wife and I are just trying to gather up money just to be able to send some stuff out that we've produced that we're trying to send out. And so, there's all sorts of things, all sorts of expenses. We have tons of expenses. And, we have every now and again, a rare person will come on and donate something to us, and we really appreciate that, and we use that money to try to spread the gospel of Christ. But we have very, very few people actually, and I don't know where you're getting that I'm getting kickbacks from these. We don't, look, I could actually make money on YouTube by having commercials for our videos if I wanted to. I don't do that, because I want anybody to be able to see these and not have, I don't want to have to start turning a profit on YouTube and have that be my focus. That's not what I'm focusing on. I want to share the gospel of Christ and have people be able to do that without seeing, all sorts of advertisements for some of these wicked movies and different things like that that are coming out on top of that. I don't think that's a good thing to do. So I just made a decision not to do that. But anybody that wants to support us, hey, you're welcome to do so, but I make this stuff available for free for anyone, okay? And very few evolutionists are willing to do that with their time, actually produce things, DVDs, articles, printouts, and all sorts of stuff like that at their expense. They are very unwilling to do that kind of thing. So show me another evolutionist that does that, that hands out their DVDs for free. I want to see that. So anyway, now, not to say that I'm handing out DVDs all the time. I don't want people to get that object. We've only had limited amounts of funds that have come in. We produced some DVDs. We've been handing them out locally to some people to try to get them into people's hands. They can learn some of the truth. That's what we're trying to do. Anyway, so now, first of all, when he says, how did the Bible count days when the sun was created on the 4th day? Well, that's a good question, but I always like to return a question. Can light exist without the sun? And well, the funny thing about that question is it usually just stops them dead in their tracks for a second, like they're blown away, like, whoa, I never thought about that there's light without the sun. Well, yeah, have you ever heard of a light bulb? You ever heard of a star? I mean, there's all sorts of things that give off light. The sun is not required for light. And first of all, the God created light, then he created the sun later, okay? And even if light weren't there, the light was, because God is the light thereof, but even if the light weren't there before the fourth day, that doesn't mean the earth wasn't spinning I mean, you can have the earth spinning into relation to anything. You don't need it spinning in relation to light. I mean, apparently it was spinning, and there was a normal 24-hour day period. And so, but even then, I mean, no one is on the planet anyway to be able to analyze whether the earth is spinning in rotation to a day or not. I mean, they're basic days. And that's what God was putting down. So apparently the earth was probably spinning in relation to the light of God coming off, and then when on the fourth day he created the greater light, to rule the day, which is the sun. And so so that's not a problem at all. I mean, but it depends on, I mean, how are you counting a day? I mean, a day is a normal 24-hour day. So you can have it spinning in relation to anything. That's the bottom line there. Now, the first time, and then he says, very interesting, he says, oh yeah, why does it say the sun revolves the earth? That's, I mean, guys, really, if you would just stop and review and read what you write before you press post on YouTube, it'd probably save you a lot of hassle and save everyone else a lot of, wasting their time. Why does it say the sun revolves the earth? I think what he's saying, and then he says, yet you still believe in this. I really don't know what he's referring to. I'm going to take a guess that he's referring to that the sun revolves around, the earth revolves around the sun. The Bible in no place says the sun revolves around the earth. I don't, point me to a scripture where you're pointing that out. Now, in Genesis 15 is the first time the sun is mentioned as going down, according to Abram's perspective. Not Abraham. He wasn't given Abraham yet. Which is an interesting thing, by the way. I thought I'd make mention of that here. Abraham, basically, Abram, if I remember right, it means father in, am I saying that right? Somebody have to correct me on the chat, or correct me somewhere. I'll correct it in the annotations if I'm wrong with that. I think in the Hebrew means father. Abraham, I've been told, means basically it's like it's putting spirit, or the word that they use for spirit. And so God, when he gave Abraham his name, he basically put the Spirit of God into his name, or into him. I don't know. It was kind of an interesting thing. Chuck Missler actually talks about that a bit more. It's kind of an interesting concept. Anyway, who cares? The point is that the sun is mentioned as going down from his perspective. Well, okay, this Pandora child guy, whoever you are, I know you won't give your name, why don't you call the meteorologist here in Indiana, and you need to call the news service there and complain to them. If you're going to make this accusation of the Bible, then you need to call and complain to the meteorologist this morning, because he said sunrise was at 6:30. Wait a second, I thought the earth goes around the sun. Why is he saying the sun's going around the earth? He's not saying the sun's going around the earth. That's just what it looks like to an earthbound perspective. That's it. Okay? Sunrise, sunset, that's what it looks like to our perspective. So all they're doing is just describing it from their perspective. That's all. It's not saying, the Bible's not saying that the sun goes around the earth. And nowhere does it claim that. So there's, and then they'll say, well, the Bible doesn't say the earth goes around the sun, so why do you claim that? Well, because there's some things that we can use our common sense on, okay? And when there's scientific experiments done, we can see that the earth goes around the sun, and that there's no conflict in the Bible with that. And and by the way, there's lots of stuff that the Bible doesn't talk about. The Bible doesn't talk about computers, but there's really computers. I mean, there's a lot of things that the Bible is silent on, but the things that it does talk about are, when you have at least when you have a King James Bible, they're unquestionable. It is, I mean, you can question them, and we can run experiments on them, but it doesn't matter whether we say God is wrong. God is correct on what he said. And some people will talk about, well, God said the earth was flat. No, he did not. It talks about the four corners of the earth, but there again, there's all sorts of ways that you can interpret that one too. There are some places where, at least I have read before, I don't know that I could back this up with anything, where the earth actually seems to bulge out in four areas. There are four areas on the round sphere of the earth that actually bulge out higher than the rest of them. Not sure exactly what's pulling on that or why that is. But some people consider that possibly four corners. I don't know about that one. But even then, when you lay out a map, I mean, just as we take a look at a map from our perspective, I mean, because of course we're earthbound observers, when we take a look at a map, it has four corners to it. I mean, but it still represents a globe. It represents the roundness of the earth. So it's not that, the Bible is saying, it's just, and when it describes the four corners of the earth, it's just talking about the entire world, over the entire surface of the world. It's a way to phrase it. I mean, there's lots of things that we use to phrase other stuff. People today still talk about, spreading things out to the four corners of the world. I mean, there's still people today that use those phrases. So it doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't mean they believe in a flat earth or that the earth is flat. In Isaiah 40:15, I think it's 40:15, if I remember right, says that the earth is round, that God sits on the circle of the earth. The Hebrew word there, I've been told the Hebrew word for that is their word for a sphere, a ball. And the Lord sits on the circle of the earth. It says he sits on the ball of the earth, basically, is the sphere. So basically, I mean, what you're arguing here, you're basically, it's what the Bible refers to, this Pandora child guy. What he's doing is straining at a gnat and swallowing at a camel. He'll pick at he's trying to pick at the gnat in his teeth, but he is swallowing an entire camel by believing that he came from a rock 4.6 billion years ago that turned into soup 3 billion years ago, that was, turned into fish 600 to, or 325 million years ago, which, turned into bananas and horses and everything else. I mean, shoot, if you want to believe that, go for it, man. I don't care what you believe. But that is not part of science. That's your religion. So go teach that at private expense at a private school. Don't make the rest of us pay to learn that junk. I am not asking creation to be taught in the public school system, okay? I think that also ought to be taught at private expense. I think we should teach science in science class, and we shouldn't be lying to students for any reason. That's the bottom line on that one. So that's all I was going to cover today. I want to get to a few of the comments if we have any. I'm not sure if we have too much on there. I'm looking through some of this. There's an awful lot of chat that was going on, and blah blah blah. No, people just basically making comments on some of the stuff we were talking about. There aren't too many things actually directed towards me, but I do appreciate how many people joined us today. I was kind of surprised. I thought, being Mother's Day was yesterday, that there'd be a lot of people that would be busy or maybe have been gone for some reason. I'm not sure. But I appreciate all of you that joined us today. Now, next week, we're not going to have a show next week live. Next week, Eric Hoven from creationtoday.org, if you guys have ever gone over there and visited their website, he's going to be having a debate against an atheist in Lafayette, Indiana, which is about 2 hours from where I live. So my wife and we're going to be heading up there next Monday night to film that, and I've been trying to get a hold of him, trying to call him. He's kind of busy right now, but to see if he wants to have dinner with us. And I thought that would be fun because I haven't seen him in a couple of years. I thought it'd be fun to catch up. But anyway, we're going to be recording that, and then I will try to get that out on the next morning. I'll see about uploading that to YouTube so you guys can watch the debate and see how that turns out. So look forward to that next week. Like I said, we won't have a show because I'm going to be doing that instead. But I think I don't remember when the next show is going to be. I think it's like May 28th. I think is a week from next Monday, and we'll have a show then. So anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. For all those who did, I'll bring that picture back up in here again. Join us for the next turkey shoot. If we have another one, I'll probably start doing a series on that. And so anyway, I think that's it. So you guys have a good night. We'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping in.